All right, do we want to do the Zoom poll now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you need me to stop sharing or you can do it with it up? No, okay.
Do you all see the poll?
We're seeing, is this displaying weird for folks?
I see it, fine.
It's displaying the results for me.
It's displaying as results, right?
Because you all are co-hosts.
I was gonna say, I don't see the results. I can
I
vote.
want to take the poll, Alana. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I can kick you off as being
I'm
the
just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's fine.
I'll revoke your co-host responsibilities. I should say that these are multiple choice, so you can select multiple responses. So if you have, there's numerous days that work best for you, feel free to select those. You don't just have to pick one. Okay, so they're rolling in. I think we have about 23 people who've responded. For all of you who have not yet responded, please do so if you want us to pick a time that you've been able to weigh in on. The evening option was brought up to us recently just to enable participation from those that might not be able to come during the day. It might help get some community folks in the room. Okay. Anyone else need more time?
That's super helpful.
Okay, so far with the results, I'm seeing a lot of you like the idea for doing hybrid meetings or virtual, but hybrid got more, definitely 65% of the vote. And then the days that work best for you all, Wednesday. A lot of you voted for Wednesday, and then Tuesday was the runner-up. And then preference for meeting times, I see before lunch is the top one. Morning was third place, so sorry for this morning meeting. So after before lunch, so from 10 to 12, post lunch was up next. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the result or end the poll. Share the results. Let's see. You all can see the results? Great. Okay. Great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And yeah, like Sarah said, I'm like, well, I wasn't fully expecting those answers, so that's really helpful. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm just reading the chat and working through forum. So we're gonna move into how we are doing decision making. And again, building off of our I'm gonna there's a lot of transition slides in this. Building off of our conversation last time, we talked about consensus and using these techniques that we're doing right now, where we can go on forum and vote, we can vote through Zoom and hand raising, and also allowing opportunities for dissent. If you need to have more of a conversation to understand something or you have different ideas, that is, it's very welcome. That's part of this process and it's valued to share those ideas. So we definitely want to make sure people feel comfortable if they have different ideas or different thoughts we should consider. And then we are thinking about how we will, okay, that's that part, sorry. How we can make sure that we're doing our best, like we have limited capacity in our core group that's leading this. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching folks and going to the right people and using the best, using our resources or making the best use of our limited resources with guidance from folks in the communities themselves. And so that's something that folks have been talking about along the way here. And so one way we thought that we could do that is to have leads for each county. I heard you, Dr. Santana, saying that, everything's not always geographic, and fully understand and agree with that and recognize that. But we thought this might be a practical way to start, getting some leads that can help us give feedback on the way that we're going to engage in communities. Because again, we have limited resources. And the idea for this is not that people are going to have this giant workload, but that they're going to be, paying attention to the way we're engaging in their communities and giving us some guidance and feedback. So these are folks that just know the communities super well. And so we're going through the 7 counties. Some folks have emerged already and kind of really proactively jumped in and started setting up meetings for us and introducing us to key groups, which is awesome. And so we want to put this out here that we're looking, it doesn't have to be just one person. It's great to be, a couple of people for each county. Some of these counties are really big and populated, so that makes a lot of sense. But we're looking for folks who feel like, they could be really helpful with guiding us and making sure that we're heading in the right direction and going to the right folks, like not this Rotary Club, like this one's like the super active one type of thing. And that would be really, really helpful. And I guess what's the best way to capture through the forum? Is it in the forum already, or do we want to just have people contact me?
It's not in the forum yet, but we can definitely add a discussion thread related to this or a topic. I guess, is there anyone who wants to volunteer for one of these county
You feel moved right
county
now,
leads now? Add it
and
to
I
the
can
chat.
stick my email in too if you want to like talk more about it and what it might entail. Feel free to reach out.
Is this
But
different than the
also,
listening sessions, or what is this? Like, what's the exact difference, rather?
this would be, as we're doing our broader outreach and engagement efforts, there's kind of like 2 prongs of the outreach that we're going to go through that today. But this one is, making sure initially we want to go out and make sure that everybody knows about this and has the opportunity to get engaged more broadly. And so this would be helping us make sure we're going to the right folks. In general, like from the county commission to you got to be at this mullet festival or whatever it is, and giving us some guidance on where to direct our resources right now. So very high level general, who are the movers and shakers and where are the places to be? So if you
And
know
just to
you're
elaborate, Mandy, I don't think you need to necessarily be, a know-it-all like for the county. Like you don't have to know everything to be one of these leads. As long as you're willing to help us in figuring it out, I would say that's also really useful. So if you, want to learn with us, and you're willing to help us in tracking down the right person, like that's also super useful. So we just need someone who's, willing to, point us in the right direction, whether it be for an outreach event, or it's, invite who should we be inviting to these workshops, right? So.
Thank you, Sarah. Dr. Santana.
I just want to point out, Pinellas County is the most urbanized county in Florida, with over 1 million residents year round, and geographically is quite diverse. And so I definitely want to participate in that because I have a base knowledge. I've been here since 1980. Uh, but by no means do I want to lead. I don't have the capacity, but I just want to say that I definitely want to participate in we can gather a group and then somebody else be the lead. In addition to that, I also have an expertise in the greater Hispanic community, that as we said before, it's not limited to a county level. So I also want to volunteer my services in I guess that overseeing of that and contributing to that inclusiveness. So that's I just wanted to voice where I'm at. But I live in Pinellas County, and I have a lot of expertise in Pinellas County.
You're signed up. We got you. We're gonna be appreciate your guidance. Thank you. Laura, I see your comment. I think we did do a map of where folks are located. A little pinpoint piece, but I don't know if that's digital yet. When we stuck our pins in where folks were. Please contact me if you have any questions. We will reach out to some folks if we do have the gaps, and see if folks are willing. Again, not anticipating that this is a heavy lift, but just helping guide us and give us some feedback, because we're a lean crew, and so having some captains or leads is going to be really important. Thank you, Blake. Maybe I should take the word lead out of the title and just say county advisors.
I have a question that's kind of relevant to this, I think, but maybe a little ahead of schedule. I just have to hop off soon, so I want to make sure I ask. So we just had a listening session, and some of the people that weren't able to attend, they expressed a lot of interest in having a listening session in specific parts of like St. Pete. And I know that when it was mentioned, it was like, yeah, that would be great for like the spring. I am curious if we wanted to do some of those, I guess, less formally. Would we be able to do that and like invite you guys, or do we have to wait to the spring? I just like don't want to lose some momentum that could be happening, or awareness that some people may be having at the opportunity to speak up, especially coming into hurricane season.
That's a great question, Sarah. You are more than welcome to host as many listening sessions as you'd like, leading up to that. I think in our intention in planning those in the spring was that, we're going to be hosting some workshops this fall. And that's to train, you all to facilitate those effectively. And then, after that, we'd work on figuring out where to host those listening sessions and advertising them, getting people to show up. And then we also have some funding to support those listening sessions in the spring. But if you want to continue on and keep that momentum up, then by all means, you're welcome to keep having, informational sessions or, listening sessions, community discussions, from now and until then. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I would hate to, especially coming from the session we just had, I'd hate for it to seem like, oh, we definitely want to hear from you guys on the south side. We'll get to you next year, which could facilitate some of the already like fillings, So I was just thinking about that, and I figured I would just talk to you today. So thank you.
Can I add something real quick? Sarah, if you do have, if you conduct other events, just please keep us updated. Either just in conversations, letting us know, or also if you're leaving early, I don't know, you're gonna get to see the spreadsheet we're using for keeping, track of all the other related events going on, but I'm gonna put it in the chat for you so you can look at it and let us know what's going on.
Absolutely. And I would always extend an invite. I just honestly was thinking about it in terms of, would it look bad if we had like a quote north side listening session and then we waited to have one, not you guys look bad, but in terms of, especially from the conversation that we had. So that's why I wanted to ask before.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. Something else before we move on, because I see there's other questions in the chat. I'm not able to interact with the chat now. Every time I try and click on it, it just keeps adjusting it across my screen for some weird reason. So I'm sorry I'm not responding to you all directly in there. But I do want to mention that if you do host a listening session that is supposed to support this project specifically, please make sure to name drop us, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. That was just feedback that I heard yesterday, because in these invitations, they point to the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan, but if people don't see that our name or that we're affiliated with it, it's causing some confusion. And so just make sure whatever invitation you have, and this goes for everyone, our team included, please make sure to include our name. And we also have this really cool branding package, which we'll make sure is available for you. So if you want to use our branding, you're more than welcome to. That was funded by the Nature Conservancy. We got a small grant. So, okay. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing that up. And we really appreciate you and helping us, keep up this momentum for the project. Mandy, can we keep moving on? Awesome. So, the quote unquote homework that we gave you last time is to start thinking about what engagement efforts are currently going on or that happened recently that we can build on. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we know that one barrier to engagement is engagement fatigue and people feeling like they've already attended listening sessions or they've already said their piece about their flooding, and so we don't want to just keep going to the same people. And so we, want to be able to capture and build on what's already been done. And so go to the next slide. And when it comes to our data, it's the same thing. We don't want to be, reinventing the wheel, and we know that there's a lot of really great data out there. So, the tech work group has already started in identifying some of those resources that would be helpful to our initial mapping effort. So if you recall, when we walked through this project, the different phases, after or I should say, the second phase is doing all the mapping. And so we need to identify, where in the region those priority communities are that really need those projects. And so not only are we going to be looking at different flood drivers, but we also want to be looking at some, the socioeconomic data. And so we want to turn to you all and get some input on which data exist. It needs to be open source and accessible to us, but which data exists that can help us in sort of identifying the vulnerability of communities, whether that's health data or income ALICE community data, anything else. I know that the availability of some of our federal data is sort of up in the air right now. And so we want to open this conversation to you all, especially, focusing in on some of that socioeconomic data. And, we'll be sort of revisiting the mapping piece and having you all help us in deciding how we're mapping those communities and making sure it's very equitable. But we want the data to point us in some of those directions too. So what do you all, we have a discussion, a forum related to this, and I'm hoping one of my team members can post a link to that in the chat. So we have a forum discussion thread that you all can post in. And we also have a current Google Sheet going on where we're starting to compile all the data that we've been able to find so far. So it could be related to habitat vulnerability, it could be, flooding. So looking at the different flood drivers like, high tide, sea level rise, some, minor surge, rainfall, or it could be related to those communities and some of that socioeconomic data. It could be other existing maps. Maybe you want to point to your vulnerability assessment that was recently completed. We're all ears. So whatever data you have available, please feel free to add it to that spreadsheet, add it to the chat, or we have that form as well. Okay. So when we can revisit this at the next meeting. So related to that are the engagement efforts. You know, we know some of you are already going into your communities and talking about flooding, what the issues are. And so if you have summaries of those efforts and sort of the information you've been able to glean from those communities, then, you know, we'd like to have that so we can build on it and not, we can also identify where the gaps are, where work hasn't been done, so we can have more targeted engagement. So we have another place for you to post some of those, and it's actually in the same stakeholder spreadsheet that we had before. We have multiple tabs at the bottom, and so we created one to start tracking some of these engagement efforts. So I guess I'm gonna open up the floor now. Does anyone want to maybe talk about some engagement that they're already aware of or that's happening now, or maybe it happened recently within the last, say, 5 years or so? I know St. Pete hosted a listening session. Was it last year? And I want to say it was like February or so. Are there any other listening
The
sessions you all
mayor-
know about?
The mayor hosted something, is that what you're, after the storms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it was actually before the storms because it was like the same day we submitted this project, that NOAA grant in February. It was like February 12th or something. So not this year, but the year before. And yes, Sarah, we'll make sure that these are all accessible to you all. We have different forum conversations related to each one of these topics. So here, let me share my screen really quickly.
But Sarah, I think the only document we've been working on collaboratively is that spreadsheet. And like Alana said, it's all just in different tabs. So if you change tabs at the bottom, then you'll see them. So we've been sharing links so that it takes you to the specific sheet we're working on of that spreadsheet, but it's all in the same document, if that makes sense, if that helps keep track of it.
Can you all see the forum webpage I have pulled up? Yeah, okay. So you go to community work group, phase 1, and then all of these sort of discussions we're going through right now are here. So you go to related engagement efforts, and we have that stakeholder list linked here, and you can add additional comments if you want to add it right in here, and we can put those in this list. You click that, then go down here to outreach events, and here they are. Sorry, related engagement efforts. Here they are. So you can start adding, let's say, you know, Hernando County is, you know, just did some engagement for their vulnerability assessment. That would be really helpful to include here. And if there's a summary of that online, then we would appreciate the link. Okay. Is there any specific event anyone wants to mention? Okay. Alrighty. Well, we'll just ask you after this meeting, if you don't mind. Oh, Dr. Santana?
I just want to say that looking forward to the future, having my eye on past events, we had the first Hispanic hurricane preparation in Pinellas County in Clearwater about 2 months ago, and I think that this is the type of a thing that would have enhanced in that event. We had over 400 families that participated. 200 of them received like a solar panel they will charge their cell phones in addition to some other
Mhm.
things that were there. And so I'm thinking that events like this in the future are something that we can definitely include this knowledge base of talking about the flooding potential and what people are what people need. So just throwing that out there that I think is important for me to be able to put this as an equational thing, as an additional thing, as an enhancement to other events that we have.
Mhm.
I agree. And if there are opportunities for us to go and table, or if you're willing to table for us at an event like that and share resources related to the plan, then we welcome those opportunities. So please keep in touch if you see other events like that that we can piggyback on. Dr. Austin.
Good morning again. I wanted to just do some investigating. There's an area, Progress Village in Hillsborough County, that I wanted to just identify as an area that we could have a listening tour specifically for that group. So I think what I can do is add that as one of the items on that spreadsheet and perhaps work with some folks down there to identify a location, et cetera, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. And the notes just mark that, it's a suggested need
Sure.
Or a gap area. But I believe they are involved in this project, the Progress Village Civic Association. I think that's
Yes.
the name of them. Yeah. And so I agree with you.
Okay.
Definitely need some concerted, work there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So we appreciate you uploading and letting us know about those engagement efforts. Again, we just don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we recognize that you all are doing really important work with your communities, and so we want to gather that knowledge and then build on it. So keep letting us know what engagement efforts you're aware of. And then it's really important if there's like takeaways from that or summaries. It's helpful for us to know where, but if we can learn something from those too, that we can integrate into the plan, that's really useful information. So, and we can keep revisiting this too over future meetings. Okay, Mandy, you're up next.
Mhm.
And just a time check, we have about 40 minutes left, and so we have to get through the outreach efforts and the workshop.
Okay. So one of the initial things that we need to do is our outreach across Tampa Bay. And this is separate from the listening sessions, but can help build to the listening sessions. And this is just introducing the coastal master plan process to the area. Most people don't know what we're talking about when we say coastal master plan. They've never heard of one. And overviewing the risk and solutions, and how the community can be involved, and just kind of capturing, so doing this general outreach and also getting kind of an organic feedback from people who are really interested across the Tampa Bay area to get involved and keep them involved. So this is how we're kind of socializing this project as an initial outreach effort. So in our grant, I'm showing you the first bullet is kind of showing you what we've committed to doing as part of this, and that we want to do at least 7 events, which is 1 per county, is where we are. But this is, we're thinking mainly tabling presentations, going to meet people where they are in the high impact areas. We can do more than 1 per county, but this will be more of a group effort to do that reach. So we're trying to lay this groundwork, build towards the future training workshops, listening sessions, and really get our initial list of folks that should be receiving updates and following us on social media and following along with what's going on. So we prepared for this fall and winter an initial very rough draft list of where we could go in each county to reach folks. And we are very much looking for feedback on what, does this make sense? Which one do you think, is like absolutely have to be there if you go anywhere? Or we need to be making sure that we're reaching this other organization or civic group that would be really impactful. So we're looking for you all to just give us feedback on the event list, which I don't want to click the link, but I'm guessing because it will mess up the spreadsheet. Oh, maybe I should click it. Yeah. So if you go down to outreach events, the third tab, you'll see this preliminary list. Some of it has been informed by folks within the counties. Again, this is that county lead or advisor comes very handy. Sarasota, has some initial guidance, and so does Hernando. On where we need to be, but we would love, I think, you can comment on the spreadsheet about other places, festivals, associations, organizations, meetings that we should go to, and strive to reach out to and directly talk to give a presentation or do tabling, and get folks signed up. So please don't be shy about commenting on this. Yes, Dr. Santana.
Just, I guess a question of clarification. Do we have the ability of doing these in multiple language, Vietnamese? We have a large community in Pinellas, and also Spanish and whatever else that common language is in the particular targeted area that we're looking at.
We can translate the materials, but then we would need somebody from the communities to help us with actual translation. But it's something that we definitely intend to do. So thank you for raising that.
And we do have Spanish translations of like all of our flyers so far.
But Vietnamese is a good flag.
Agreed.
Yeah. Hope Spot Festival in February for Dunedin. Okay. But feel free to go in. This is accessible anytime and just check it out and put it. It would be helpful if it was kind of between October and February-ish for the timing on the process and the bigger process. So just keep that in mind when you're adding things in. And I can't. All right. And then this is just a little bit, I think I just already covered this, but things to think about is, and things that we've been thinking about as we put it together initially is how we're making sure that we're in the right location, not just big things in the county, but that we're in the right areas of the county that might be underserved, might be at higher risk. Those are other things to keep in mind, even if it's not the biggest festival, but you're gonna reach the right audiences. So. And complementing that is our outreach materials. So we talked about this last time. And this, of course, is going to be the first thing we have to do before we can go out and hit streets and reach people. We need to make sure that we have the right materials. And we got a lot of great feedback last time. Of course, we have our webpage. We already have one-pagers. And as Alana said, those are translated in Spanish. And we have a flood risk survey that we can use and QR codes. We have email lists. But there are more things that we probably need to engage folks. So we're thinking about an events calendar as we start figuring out where exactly we want to go and be, and listening sessions and all of those things, and having that really accessible to folks so they can know where and how they can engage. And also maybe some examples of the nature-based solutions and the project types that we're talking about, so that, this is, I'm not going to take for granted that, folks have any idea what we're talking about when we say nature-based solution or natural infrastructure. So there's some of that, foundational education that we need to be able to provide to people to make this really accessible and inclusive and help people understand what it is and why it matters, and of course what their role is. And so we talked about having a social media toolkit. Something that folks talked about was having a presentation toolkit or some type of general outreach toolkit, so that if you have a community meeting or you're part of a neighborhood association or you're part of the chamber, that you can, use that information to distribute to your networks yourself, and be that ambassador. And we still remember the t-shirt idea, and that idea is still alive, and we like that idea of empowering folks to go out and be part of this engagement team. So there is a link in the forum about outreach materials and about the different ideas, and so we definitely want to get any additional feedback, any additional ideas. Folks said, we want things to be reusable, tote bags, and things like that to hand out to folks to help advertise it with the QR code. But yeah, so love your feedback on that, and then we're going to get going pretty soon with procuring whatever we need and developing these handouts, and then that'll be for everyone to be able to use. But just looking for the last bit of genius ideas that you have for what type of outreach materials we need to make sure we have. So please check that out in the forum, in the community work group location. Yeah, I think Linda, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Mandy. Well, good morning, everyone. We are gearing up for some workshops this fall. We are going to hold 3 workshops where we want to train you and others how to facilitate these listening sessions. And what we want to do is we want to build the capacity of our community leaders, our municipal staff, anyone working in our local governments, NGOs, nonprofits, everywhere, how to listen to our residents and how to collect the concerns, how to record the concerns, facilitating processes so that everyone in the room has an opportunity to share their concerns. And we get a lot of questions. I do a lot of education in the area of facilitation, and the one question that we get more often than any other is, how do I stop that person who wants to talk too much? And so in this workshop, we will teach you how to manage the audience so that one person isn't dominating, so that one person isn't sitting there not saying anything, because oftentimes those folks have really good things to say. They just may not feel comfortable saying it. So we're going to teach you how to manage all of that kind of stuff and a whole lot more. And we want to do this fall, because in the spring, and I heard some of you say this already, in the spring, we hope that you will go out and help us hold more of these listening sessions throughout the communities. And that's what concern collecting is in here. We've been going back and forth on our terminology, but essentially what we're talking about are community listening sessions where we bring the community members together in a room and we ask them questions. Now, you could do that without having any kind of facilitation training, but you might not get as rich of a discussion for the reasons I just mentioned. Some people may not open up, may not talk. Some people might talk way too much. There may not be ample time to address all the questions that we want to ask. Again, because you might get people who are dominating. What about those people that want to talk about something that's not related? That happens, right? That happens all of the time. What are we having for lunch? Well, we're not talking about that here, right? So how do you manage and juggle all of those things? And there are some techniques that we can teach you to do that. There'll be some other things too that we're going to teach you. It's not just about facilitation, but that's going to be the primary thing. So we hope that you will participate, but also we hope that you will invite others in your community, people you work with, people that you know, friends, family, whoever would like to be trained. We want to train as many people as we possibly can because, again, we want to build your capacity to do this work above and beyond this group here. I think it was Mandy or someone who said earlier, our team here really doesn't have the capacity to address or to work with the large populations that we have throughout the 7-county region. So if we can train you, that would be awesome. Let's move on to the next slide. Is that where the poll is? Okay. So we want to make sure that we accommodate your needs and your preferences. So we have set up some workshops, or we have set up some possible locations for workshops throughout the 7 counties. And what we would like to do, Mesley, are you going to pop that survey in the chat box for us? What
Yes,
we would like for you to do, awesome, thank you, is to complete this survey to help us decide when and where to hold these workshops. And again, there are going to be 3 workshops in total. Right now, it looks like there are a whole bunch of workshops, but we're going to narrow it down based on your responses to the survey. And that is in the chat box. And I'm going to stop talking for just a moment so that we give you time to complete that survey, okay? So we'll give you about a minute. Everyone's quiet. That must mean they're busy. Mesley, are you able to see how many responses we have?
let me check.
We have 11 so far.
Okay, super. We have 30 in the room. So if you haven't yet, please complete that survey. Some people might be checking calendars. Okay, we're going to move on. And if you haven't had a chance to complete the survey, please make sure you do that. That's going to be really critical as we plan these workshops because we really want all of you come if you possibly can. All right, next slide, Mandy. So this just kind of lays out the target audience. I kind of alluded to this already, but we're looking for those community-based organizations. We're looking for community leaders. Maybe you don't identify as a community leader, but you probably are if you're in this meeting. Local government staff, anyone out there, you guys, that you think or who you think should get this training or will benefit. Are there other audiences that we should invite to the workshops? Think about that. Maybe we can share that on the forums since I know we're getting close on time. Alana and Mesley, does that make sense? And do you have specific contacts that we should invite? So if you know of people specifically that we need to send an invitation to for these workshops, please drop those in the forum also. We'll make sure they get a personal invitation. In fact, you'll get a personal invitation also. Any thoughts, comments on those? Go ahead, Mandy. Let's go ahead and jump into this. I think you and I are sharing the stage on this one, right? You want me to take the first slide, then you take the second one?
Okay.
Okay, great. So when we think about engagement, and this is why we're asking for you all to fill out that survey, not only is time and place an issue when it comes to engagement, but also trust. There's a lot of research out there right now showing that trust in institutions and government organizations in the United States are really, really down. So we're really struggling with these trust issues, perceptions of top-down decision making so many times People have been asked to participate in something like this and they never hear from us again. And so by doing these workshops, we hope that they know your face, they being the community members, they recognize you, they trust you, and they are going to be more inclined to open up and talk to you about their flooding issues. Also, communication and information. We have a lot of different flooding issues, as you all know. We also have very diverse communities, as you've heard. Lack of neighborhood level information. You know, back in the day, everyone who lived on the block knew everyone and knew what everyone was doing. These days, it's not like that. So we don't have a lot of neighborhood level information. We have limited transparency, and then the complex or overly technical language. That's one thing that I know in extension we really struggle with, because we're always thinking, you know, that higher level when we're writing and talking to people, but we really need to bring it down to the community level. And then poor risk visualization tools. Hard for me to say. So those are just some of the barriers. Mandy, you want to go on to the second slide and I'll let you talk about those.
All right, participation to access, which is something we've kind of hinted around on all day today, and how do we overcome this? And you all have lots of great ideas, but just recognizing, you know, one of the things about Forum is not everybody likes to do online stuff, and I think that if you've done a lot of outreach, you realize people like they like hard copies of surveys, and they like you know, that type of thing, and they're shy about the online. So it's something we need to think about as we engage folks. Of course, time constraints, and we're looking at different meeting times and things like that just for this group to be more inclusive, but also in our outreach efforts as well, listening sessions. And then how do you reach the most vulnerable community? So that was talked about earlier on the call, and that is always really tough. We have that trust issue tends to come in there especially, and I think working with the leaders on the call who have established relationships, or community leaders who have that trust already, is going to be really essential to us being effective and being able to reach those communities. And you can see, you know, accessibility, physical accessibility, you know, there's just so many constraints that we're working with right now. So things that we're keeping in mind. Do you want me to keep going, or you want to go?
I can do it.
Okay.
So cultural and social disconnects, you know, we've talked a little bit about that, you know, just, you know, do we have Spanish speakers? Do we have Vietnamese speakers? Those kinds of things we need to be thinking about. And those can also prevent people from attending, or barriers to engagement. Because, you know, if you advertise it in a local community newspaper, perhaps someone who speaks a different language may look at that and say, well, they're not going to be talking to me because they're not going to be able to understand me. My accent is really different, or it's difficult to understand. So we need to overcome those barriers as well. And then, you know, I talk a lot and teach a lot about community values, and values are super important. We don't think about that very often, but we oftentimes, when we're planning events or we're reaching out to people, hoping that they'll engage, we are overlooking those community values. So, for example, in a community that maybe values family dinner time, scheduling a meeting during family dinner time is going to be a barrier to engagement, because that culture values, right? I see your hand up there, Dr. Santana, especially thinking about the Hispanic communities, because that's an important thing for those cultures. So yeah, it's really important to think about those. And then distrust or fear of public services, again, especially among undocumented residents. I don't think I need to say that one very loudly right now. I think we're all very much aware of those issues. And then engagement fatigue and capacity issues. I hear this really often, especially from professionals, how we are just so over being surveyed, and how we're so over being asked to go to this and go to that. And so that's really a challenge to overcome. I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that we have to think about. And I think when we assure people, and when we walk the talk, we assure people that we're going to come back to them. This isn't a one and done. We aren't going to bring you together and talk and then we're going to leave. So I think it's really important that we find ways to continue engaging with people after the listening session. And I think that highlights why it's so critical that those of you who are working boots on the ground in the communities are involved, because they're going to see your face again and again. They're not going to see me. They're not going to see Mandy again, probably. So it's really important that they have that person that they can connect with. And then, of course, resources, limited resources, funding. You all know about that, I'm sure. Strong need for in-depth stakeholder outreach and needed capacity to address demand. Always an issue when we're thinking about how do we reach people, how do we build capacity, and then lack of decision-making authority. I think people in the communities, or people in general, just feel like they have no power. So I think through these listening sessions, I would love to see us building some agency, building some empowerment for local communities to make them feel like they are involved and they have a say in how this coastal master plan is directed. Is there another slide?
That's it. And I
Oh, okay.
want to say, I think in the forum that there's a discussion where if there's other barriers to engagement we should be thinking about or you want to share, there's a place in there to make comment or provide more feedback. So thank you.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add now before we move on? Are there other barriers that weren't captured in those slides? I know a few have been mentioned earlier in the meeting, but just want to give space for those who'd like to verbalize those barriers. Or you can add them to the chat.
Unmute Dr. Santana.
Sorry about that. I do have a quick thing, and it's sort of like tying together some of the things that were just mentioned. There's a lot of fatigue for surveys and gathering, and there's a lot of distrust of people coming in and taking their time, and then they never get seen again. And so one of the things that have been very useful for me is to have an immediate incentive, some kind of a gift card, or something to give for the time that is there, so that people then can say, okay, I can give that 5-10 minute time frame to be able to do this, and because that promise that this is something good for the future for everybody is it's just used so often that it's not an incentive any longer. So I just want to throw that out. It was mentioned about T-shirts and other things that we can have. When it comes to like heat, extreme heat, which by the way, I'm having an interview in about 5 minutes with a local television on that. But we have fans that we can give out. We have all kinds of cooling. But when it comes to flooding, I'm not sure exactly what we can give that will complement that. So I'm open to that. But yeah, incentives are, I think, a key to get people to participate.
Thank you.
We really appreciate that feedback and good luck in your interview. I was just interviewed last week for a news story related to this plan. So any other suggestions? Oh, thanks, Mandy.
And Tom Reese is on. I think he also did a good job.
Oh yeah, he did. And so did our partners over in Progress Village.
Yes.
So please feel free to keep adding these barriers. I just posted a link to, if you click on phase 1 under in the community work group, you'll see all of these posts, and we'll continue adding posts as we go through these meetings. We want to make sure to have it kind of organized. And so it does seem like there's a lot of discussion posts, but the idea is we create them now and then you can all keep revisiting them. And we will be during subsequent meetings. So please reach out if you have any questions about navigating the forum or suggestions, because, Sarah's back there, coding away. And so we can, make this even more accessible if you have some ideas. Okay. So we're getting to the end of our meeting today. I know it feels like we're drinking from like a fire hydrant each time we have these meetings, but there's just so much good information, and we need your feedback on all of these different things that are really shaping the plan. And that's why we're having monthly meetings, because we're just laying the foundation, the groundwork to build this plan over the next 4 years. We want to make sure that we're, planning it correctly, and then we'll keep revisiting each of the different phases and as we get there, and these different tasks, and having you weigh in at those points too. So we're going to continue developing this engagement and outreach strategy over the next few meetings. So we'll be meeting again in September, and we'll use the poll that you all responded to earlier to pick a day and time that works for most of you. And then at that September meeting, we'll do a deeper dive into those guiding principles. We'll revisit the training workshops that will be happening that month and the next month. And so we want to have a final push for those. They're really meant for you all to be attending, our community-based organizations, our government staff. We recognize there are trust issues there. So this is one way that we can start in bridging that and building relationships across the region. And so please attend those workshops. That was an add-on to this project that, wasn't super essential, but in our eyes it was, because we want you all to have the capacity to continue having these conversations even after this plan is published. Because adaptation doesn't end here. You all need to be able to go out and have those relationships with your communities and be able to get their feedback on what's what's wrong and how you can solve them. So this will be the first set of those workshops, and so we'll talk more about them at the next meeting, and then we'll bridging on that discussion of some of those common engagement barriers, we're going to talk about best practices and solutions we can implement to overcome some of those barriers. And then we're going to talk about messaging for the plan. We want to make sure that the messaging we're using is salient and understandable and effective. And so and then, we'll dive a little deeper into those ongoing communications. And then in subsequent meetings, we're going to talk about feedback loops and how we can fold in your input over time. And then we'll be reviewing, our outreach and engagement strategy with you to make sure that the way we have our engagement planned is what our communities needs, and it reflects, their values as well. So Blake, I see you raised a question about discussing target audiences. So yes, that initially was a discussion. We were just going to generally talk about target audiences, but then we realized it's a little more helpful to talk about target audiences in relation to the specific activities of this plan. Just recognizing there's a lot of moving parts. So, it could be like Mandy's outreach efforts, going and tabling at events or doing presentations, or it could be who are our target audiences for the workshops. And so we plan on approaching, talking about target audiences when it comes to sort of each set of these activities, rather than just this general big discussion of target audiences. So if you have some other suggestions for us and how to sort of frame and talk about target audiences, then we welcome, your feedback.
Can I add something real quick, Alana?
Yeah, go ahead, Nestle.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we've been working on the stakeholder list from last time. We tried to incorporate all the comments that you all suggested, and I reached out to a few about being the point of contact for some of these people. So please respond, even if you're like, I don't want to be the point of contact. That's okay. We'll reach out. But we want to continue working on that. So if you think of any other people you want to include, please go back to that stakeholder list, the first tab, and keep adding comments on there. We'll be looking at them periodically. And then we'll send up a follow-up email. Hopefully, please make sure that you're subscribed so you can get all the links. We'll try to make it, as organized as possible, because we know it's a lot of information. And lastly, because it is so much information, we don't want you to get overwhelmed and feel like you have to answer all of the questions and every single thread. So if you feel very strongly about one, like if you have a lot of expertise with community engagement and you want to talk about the barriers or whatever it is you feel strongly about, please focus on that if you want to. Just we really appreciate your input at whatever level you're able to provide it.
Thank you for that, Mesli. So we'll send up the follow-up email after this meeting, and it'll include all of the links. I'm having access issues. I try and open everything in an incognito browser to make sure that everyone can see it, and I'm having issues getting into the specific forum topics now. It's making me log in, so we'll work on that too. But if you haven't already, please make an account with Forum or our forum, and then you can go in and see all of these different discussion threads, and then, like Mesli said, comment on whichever you feel like you have something to say about. So go to the next slide, Mandy. I think that, oh, okay. like we said, please make that forum account and contribute to those discussions. And then we will also be posting that workshop survey. So if you haven't already gone in there and filled that out, that is sort of our highest priority action item is nailing down where and when we're going to have those workshops. So we're going to have one per section of the region. So one in the northern counties, one in our central counties, and then one in the south. And so we want to pick a place that everyone is able to access, and then a time and or a date that works for you all. So please make sure you respond to that, and you'll just select which area of the region you'll be joining the workshop from, and then you'll have some prompts that pop up asking you to select a location and then a day. And if multiple work for you, then you can select multiple. We just want to give you some options, and that also gives us some options in selecting them. So I think that is it, right? Yep. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for coming today. I know this was a lot, but we will send a summary email. We really appreciate your participation and all your feedback on this really important project. So thank you again, and we will see you next time, September.
Perfect timing. I gotta go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Such valuable feedback.
Be well.
Thanks.